the region and with Burgundy wines.
It's okay.
Okay, so in fact, I want to introduce Romain, who is the expert as far as the Mâconnais wines, and he's young, but he has already a long experience of winemaking and viticulture in this part of France. I was born there, I know, a few years ago. I mean, I was born in Mâcon, and my parents were winemakers in the same village as Romain, in the Chantray. But I left, I mean, I spent the first 11 years of my life in this village, went to school in the village until the age of 11. No one knows me anymore there because it was in a previous century, but I still have a lot of memories there and a little bit of family. And my family had a long, friendship relationship with the Cornin family, Romain grandfather, Romain's father. So I feel very good, having Romain tonight with us to taste 3 of his wines. First I want to thank Romain for having accepted to lead this wine tasting from his cellar live tonight in the village of Chantray, which is really the heart of the Puy-Fuissé and Mâcon wines. So we cannot be better located for having this tasting. So Romain is only 33 years old, but in the footsteps of his father, Dominic, he has already been recognized as one of the best winemakers of the Mâconnais wine region. Romain holds a Bachelor of Science in Viticulture and Enology from the University of Dijon, and he is also a graduate of the French Institute of Enology. He has also done 2 internships years ago in well-known wineries in New Zealand and in Oregon in the United States. And he's now exporting his wine in many countries. So Romain is really a citizen of the world of wines. His first year as a winemaker at the Domaine Cornin was in 2012, but he is now fully in charge of all Cornin operations. He has also, and that's very important, he has also been chosen by the prestigious and centuries-old Domaine des Hospices de Beaune Foundation as the caretaker of the hospices vineyards at Puy-Fuissé. And it tells a lot about, his ability to make good wines, because they are very picky. The Hospices de Beaune are very picky as far as, choosing their winemakers. Over the years, Domaine Cornin have received the highest ratings from many European and American wine magazines, including Robert Parker and Decanter. The Cornin wines are on the wine list of many of the best restaurants in France. And Romain's father, Dominic, was one of the 7 winemakers of Burgundy, chosen by Martine Saunier, the founder of Martin Wines in Novato, California, for a 5-star rated documentary film she made a few years ago and called Here in Burgundy. This documentary, which is really, really great, is a must-see for anyone interested in winemaking in France. And you can find this film on Amazon Prime Video as of today. So, Romain, thank you very much once again for having us tonight in your cellar. Now it's your turn to tell us about your domain and your region and the wines we are going to taste tonight. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I don't know if that's okay. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's I'm very happy to have you. Unfortunately, at the beginning. This normally it's need to. I mean, It was, I think, last year we talked about that to do like a diner or tasting room. I mean, in the United States, but unfortunately, mainly about the COVID, it's not easy to do this in United States. So we do that by internet with Zoom. But the good thing is you are in the winery and you really see where where I produce some wine. Behind me, this is the tank where there is some wine from the new vintage to 2020, and the barrel behind me, it's also where we produce some wine that depend of which appellation. So just for the village and where we are located here in the village of Chantray. It's a really small village in Burgundy. So Burgundy, it's a big area. On the top of Burgundy, you can find the Chablis, and then Côte de Nuit, Côte de Beaune, Côte Chalonnaise, and then the Mâconnais. And we are located in the Mâconnais. Mâconnais, it's the area very close to the Beaujolais. So we are really, really south in Burgundy, very close to the Beaujolais. The big difference for example, of Burgundy and Beaujolais, the Beaujolais, that's the end of the Massif Central. It's a big mountain in France, in the center of France, but it's mainly granite and sandy soil. Us, Burgundy and the Mâconnais, it's more like the Alp elevation. They push the soil and they created the different kind of soil, but our area was created by the elevation of the Alps. So that's why we have some clay and limestone. Limestone is really important for soil. And that's why we produce, white Chardonnay, but also there is like Pinot north of Burgundy. So we have very specific kind of soil. We have some limestone, but quite different if you compare the limestone, for example, in Champagne, because in Champagne, the limestone is really white, but really soft. That's why they will be able to make the really nice, cellar cave in behind the soil, because it's really soft limestone. Us, completely different. The limestone is really strong and is more like yellow. I don't know if you know, but there is a quite famous rock in the Mâconnais close where it's rock of Solutré. Solutré is quite famous in France because like long time ago, the president was every year the name was Mitterrand. He came every year to climb the rock of Solutré. And this rock is really the limestone and the soil where grow our vines. And it's this really rocky soil limestone that gives really this typicity of the Pouilly Épicé and the area. So the small village where we are, Chantray, that's the first village where you can produce the Pouilly Épicé appellation. You can produce Pouilly Épicé on the village of Chantray, Fuissé, Pouilly, Solutré, and the last one is Vergisson. So 5 villages, but on each villages, we can produce, for example, in my village, we can produce Mâcon Chantray, is the lower level of appellation, and then we can produce also Pouilly Épicé. So we can produce 2 different appellations on the same village. Why? Because more on the flat area where the soil they are a little more, rich. We have more clay and sediment. It's Mâcon appellation, and on the top of the hill where we have more clay, it's the appellation of Pouilly Épicé. We are more on the rock. That's why it's Pouilly Épicé appellation. So that means with the same varietal Chardonnay, we are able to produce Mâcon Chantray and Pouilly Épicé, 2 different appellations, but with the same grape varietal on the same village. This is typically Burgundy. Burgundy, it's pretty easy for the varietal, grape varietal. It's Pinot Noir for the red and Chardonnay for the white wine. But for us, what is very important in Burgundy is the soil. And then different kind of soil, they can give different appellation. And this kind of soil, if we have more limestone or less, more clay or less, they give all the different kind of appellation. And that's why you can find, I mean, a lot of different appellation in Burgundy. And that's what they give really this nice diversity. And I mean, I know Burgundy is not really easy to understand when the people, they are not really familiar, I mean, with all the different, I mean, yeah, soil or appellation, the different kind of little thing. But that's give also the really, really interesting, because we use the name of all the village and also all the different kind of limestone and microclimate. So this is really the spirit, I mean, of Burgundy. And us in my estate, we produce only white wine, only Chardonnay. So I don't know if you want, maybe I can explain more I don't know, the historic of the estate, or more about the soil. I don't know what you want to. We can start. I mean, maybe by the beginning. Here, actually the estate. The name of the estate is Dominique Cornin. Dominique is my father, and it's because my father, I mean, built this estate. We are really lucky because we farm some vineyard. We have a lot of old vines. They were planted by my grandfather or great-grandfather. But at this time, we were not, I mean, owner of the vines. And since now, we don't own all the vines, only some, only a little. But my family, they were worker of these vines. That means some people, they own the land, and my grandfather, great-grandfather, they found the land, and at the end of the year, we split the crop, I mean the harvest. There is half for the owner and half for my grandfather or great-grandfather, because they farm. So that was the deal. And then this there is like some evolution. Now we have less, we call métayage. Now is we rent. So that means we rent the vine. We need to pay for we pay every year for own the vines. And I mean, this was the thing they changed a little, but my grandfather and great-grandfather, they farm the vineyard, but also they start to make a little of wine. The thing, my grandfather was sick, really, really, I mean, young, and he died really early. And my grandmother, she took care of all the estate. She had also 7 children and the estate to manage. So at this time it was quite difficult for her. So that's why all the vines, they were put in the CAF cooperative. And when my father restarted the estate, everything was at the cooperative. So he need to quit the cooperative, to pay the cooperative to quit the cooperative, and he rebuild like this estate with the vines, with a lot of old vines from the last generation, my father and great-grandfather. So they continued to rent these vines. He also planted a little more, but it was really like more creation. And it was not easy because you restart with nothing, with no building, no tank, no press, with nothing. So the beginning was quite difficult for him. And it took many years to be able to make some, I mean, his own wine, and also, I mean, in good condition. So it was, I mean, yeah, it was really something really, I mean, courageous. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it was not something really not easy to decide in, and the beginning was quite difficult. Yeah. But I mean, he put a lot of energy to this, and I'm really lucky because for me it was like something really really nice, and also it's something it give me this opportunity to make the wine too, because at this time a lot of people they were more not only but many farmer of the vines, and not all the people they make the wine. It was just a part, and now we farm the vines, but also we make the wine and we sell the wine. So we have like 3 jobs, and this is for me the more interesting, because every day is different and we take care of all the steps, and that's very important because it's a lot of piece put together to make good wine. It's not only one thing is important, it's all the different all the different piece. They are really important, because at the end to make the good wine is all the small thing. It's not really, this is really important. It's not only one thing, it's all the small steps put together and at the end you have a nice wine. Why? Because my father started in 1998 to stop herbicide and to plow the vineyard, and in 2000 he stopped also to like chemical to spray the vine, and since 2003 all the vineyard is in organic but also in biodynamic. So that means we don't use any more herbicide or chemical to spray in the vines, and this is really a different a way to grow the vines. And it's not easy every vintage every year, because some year it's really wet, and it's not easy because there is some disease in the vines. But at the end of for the wine, for the product, the wine at the end it's really important to farm in this way, because that give really, when we call terroir, that give really the nice difference in all the different wines. For example, I don't know how to explain exactly, that give a really nice characteristic to the wine, and every vintage we can find the same characteristic to the wine. If it's for example, I don't know, some plot they give more minerality, you will find always this minerality in this wine. Every vintage, same if the vintage is different, you will find the same characteristic in the wine. And this is really the farming, the nice farming, they give for us something really interesting in the wine. The really thing important is then we use the less possible product. So we use only a little of sulfite. That's the only thing we add in the wine. That means we don't add enzyme, we don't add yeast, we don't add vitamin for the fermentation. We really completely stop all the thing we add in the wine. We add only a little of sulfite. That's the only thing, but like maybe 70% less than all the other producers, for example. Why? Because we harvest by hand, because all the grapes, they are already in organic. We leave time to the fermentation to the wine, so we don't need to have the fermentation happen in only 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And we leave some time to the wine for the sedimentation also. And that's why when I explain all the piece, it's all this piece give at the end the wine and this characteristic. But I mean, the problem is you need to be really good and control all the small steps, and it's a lot of, I mean, it's more difficult because you need to be good at all the small steps, otherwise you can have some problems. So you need to be you need to be very good at all the things. So it's not easy for some vintage, some year, but that give really it's more interesting to make some wine in this way. And at the end, in the product, it's really different. You have nice tasting for it. That's why it's more interesting. And I mean,
Romain?
oui.
I would just, maybe I want to just propose that there's a lot more to talk about. Also, given probably every wine we're going to taste, maybe we can combine more of this presentation with the context of each wine we're tasting, because A, I'm sure everybody's very impatient. The wines have been sitting in their glasses for half an hour. And B, it gives a context to everything that you're saying, because then we can recognize it hopefully in what we're tasting and what we're smelling and all that. What do you think?
Okay, why not? Do you want I explain something more about the estate or about the farming, or we go more for the tasting?
Let's jump into the wines, and maybe we can have questions at the end to kind of wrap it up afterwards. That would sort of, be a nice thing.
No problem. Hop. Alors, I just here. So we start with the Bourgogne Blanc. I think you have all Bourgogne Blanc, the first wine.
Yeah.
That's the first wine. So we'll test the Bourgogne Blanc. If you want, I put the back here. So Bourgogne Blanc for us is, I was explaining later, it's only white wine and only Chardonnay for us on the estate. And the Bourgogne Blanc, it's a big appellation because you can find Bourgogne Blanc from our area until Chablis. That's a lot of people from the, quite often the négoce, they like this appellation because they can buy, some Chardonnay from everywhere, blend together and to make this wine. Us, it's a Bourgogne Blanc only from our village, only from Chardonnay. So this is a Chardonnay, but with the fermentation, it's happened only in tank. Why? Because I like, for the Bourgogne Blanc Mâconnais, I like to use the tank because it's really, they give more fruit in the wine, and I really like this, spirit in the wine. It's very interesting because you have no oak, it's unoaked, and you can taste only really Chardonnay. And that's really what I want for this kind of wine. It's more pleasure wine, more, it's really pleasure wine, more wine for example, we don't drink really like rosé for us in our area. And if there is some friend, they come, or if it's more like the wine for every day, and it's more fruity wine also. So I use no oak. We harvest the grapes. I put the grapes in the press. I press the juice, and the juice, they go in the tank. We rack. I take only the clear juice, and this clear juice will ferment, and they will give this wine. I always do the first fermentation with the yeast. The yeast, the sugar became alcohol, and then there is the second fermentation we call the malolactic. This is not the yeast, but the bacteria. This is naturally also happen. So we leave the malolactic happen. Why? Because the wine then is stabilized naturally, and then we don't need to do strong filtration or all this kind of thing. We just need to leave time to the wine, and the only thing happen is little of sulfite, and then we bottle with the machine behind me. We bottle ourselves in here in the estate, and that give this wine is quite often I bottle 1 year after the harvest. So we leave 1 year on the fine lees, and there is some lees behind on the tank, on the floor, that give more roundness, a little more soft. The lees, the wine is not too they give them some nice freshness, but also some little of roundness. Yeah, the lees. So I don't know if we can taste it. You have 17 vintage, no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 2017.
2017 was a really sunny vintage, really warm, really dry also. So that gives pretty nice wine, pretty not round, but with the really nice nose on the fruit. Yeah, but I like because there is also nice freshness. The wine is not too heavy, not too rich. You have nice finish. And in Burgundy, I like the white wine with some freshness. I don't like the wine too heavy, too rich. And I like this nice acidity at the end of the mouth that gives you some energy.
Does anybody want to make a comment on the wine or an impression either on the nose or the mouth or the? Do you guys agree with what Romain is saying, or do you dare to disagree?
So for the Mâcon, it's what we want. It's more wine on the fruit. So it's not the best wine to age. It's not, I mean, built for aging. It's really pleasure wine. It's more, I mean, it's better to drink like after 3 until 5 years, but it's not, I mean, it's not made to be aged really long time. It's really,
you know, also people are always a little bit curious about the food that goes with different wines. Now, I don't know if you want to comment on that. Some wines, maybe like this, could also be like a great for an aperitif or an afternoon sitting outside, or maybe it was something more, you know, I don't know what kind of accompagnement you would think of for something like that, if anything.
Yeah, for me, Bourgogne Blonde and Bourgogne Blonde is really more, yes, food wine, yes. But the good thing is more like aperitif to start an aperitif and to go to start to eat. But like summer at this time in summer is really nice. Maybe some salad, it's good wine for a lot of food, lot of different kind of food. But for me, it's not like if you say, you know, really wine, it needs to be only drink with in table with some fish or some white meat. Or it's good wine for a lot of things, and sometimes some Asian food too. We have some nice wine for Asian food, but there is nothing really specific. For us, we drink this wine with many different kind of food for Mâcon or Bourgogne.
A lot of the comments are coming back with agreement with the fruitiness and the freshness that you talked about. Yeah. So I do think that comes through, and it does seem, you know, very easy to drink. You know, I don't think you feel like you have to eat something with it. So that works.
That's good. No, yeah, the Bourgogne is really nice wine for pleasure. Really, it's more pleasure wine and for enjoy a glass of wine, you know, after a day of work or just to
Well, but that's I would think, especially that area, the Mâcon, I think is really, the Mâconnais is more that kind of light, easier wines. A lot of people say that they just don't take themselves as seriously as the rest of Burgundy. But how, you know, I mean, I think you're not going to say the same thing about the Meursault or a Chassagne or whatever, these wines that do take themselves seriously. And you always find yourself thinking maybe a little bit too much about it, maybe because they're expensive or something, but you feel the pressure to really try to find in it things that you wouldn't find in another wine, which you don't have because it's just very straightforward.
And because of soil, they have oak, and quite often a lot of oak, and that gives really other tasting to the wine, because oaky wine, you don't have this, I mean, it's, here it's more, not easy drinking, but it's more on the fruit. You can really feel the Chardonnay and the juice. When you have oak, they give some oak flavor, and quite often the oak is a little, you taste oak and then the wine. Here you taste only the wine, only the fruit, and there is nothing add more. It's just the fruit and just that's it. Yeah.
You mentioned the year 2017 and the weather, and then we have it 2018, which is the Puy Fussé later. Do you want to talk a little bit about the weather that year, what impact it had? I know 2017 was an amazing year in Burgundy in general. You also said that it was very warm, And so what did that do? Did that make the fruit sort of mature faster? Did you guys harvest earlier? What kind of impact did it have on the wine itself at the end?
Yeah, 17, 18 is two different vintage, really completely different. Something is important is in Burgundy and in France, all the appellation, we do not, use irrigation. If you compare for America, for example,
Yeah.
for us, we don't use, it's forbidden with appellation wine. So a vintage is really important, and specifically in Burgundy, for example, because there is the sun, yeah, of course, if it's more sunny or less, but also the weather. The weather, if we have some rain, a lot of rain, less rain, this is really the two different, two really important things, they impact the vintage. In 17, we had not a lot of rain, but a lot of sun. And the summer was really dry and really hot. And for the Chardonnay is white wine. For white wine, when we have a lot of, summer sometime, they can, we have a lot of ripeness and sometimes really low acidity. And this is not really good for white wine sometimes because you lose all the acidity. You have really strong alcohol in the white that give really full body white wine, really heavy, really round. And for me, I don't like the white wine too round, really fat, really high alcohol. This is really not the style of Burgundy wine. It's more fresh with a nice acidity and not too heavy in alcohol. 17 was a little high alcohol for us, but we had a nice acidity, a really nice balance. So nice, nice sugar, but nice fruit, but also nice, acidity, they give nice finesse. 18 was little different. In 17, for example, we harvest end of August. For us is really, really early. I think we started in 25 or 26 of August in 17. In 18 was quite different. We harvest beginning of September. We had less, we had some sun, but not warm, but not really, really hot, and a little more rain. It was not raining a lot, but a little more than 17. So that gives really different vintage. Is more little more common. And the thing 17, we lose like 30% of the crop. Why? Because it was really dry. So we had not a lot of juice in the berries. So we put the grapes in the press, we press, and at the final, there is not a lot of juice because it was really dry, the grapes. 18, at the opposite, we have nice juice because we had some rain just before harvest, and they give some, to us, nice juicy grapes. So we have a little more crop. So quite really, really different vintage, yeah, 17 and 18. So that's why we put vintage quite often in the bottle, in the wine, and could be very different of if it's some vintage, sometimes they are really different. Good vintage for white, it's quite normally good vintage for red, and the opposite, good vintage for red is not good vintage for white. So quite often the vintage, be careful of the vintage if it's white or red, for example, in Burgundy, because we don't want the same thing. For red, we want more concentration, more about the tannins, anthocyane, and the ripeness. And for the white, we want more freshness. So it's two different things. And quite often, good vintage in white is not good for red, and at the opposite.
But 17 was good for both, wasn't it?
Yes, but the red, they were little, difficult, really young. They are really good now, but when they were young, they were a little strict.
Yeah.
But it was pretty good for both. It was not too bad. Yeah.
Let's go to le deuxième, c'est le Mâcon Chimpré.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody get ready to. Why? Do you want the same one?
Might as well.
Yes, second wine is Mâcon Chantré. So Mâcon Chantré, the name of our village, and there is another name. It's Les Serredières. Les Serredières, that's the name of the single vineyard. So that means it's Mâcon. Mâcon is the big area. Chantré is our village. Sorry. And Les Serredières is the name of the plot. So it's like a map of really of you can find where is located the vineyard. So it's only one vineyard, really specific because it's on east side. And here we have a lot of old vines. There is like about, a third was planted by my great-grandfather. The other third was planted by my grandfather. And the last third was planted by my father. So we have 3 generations here of plantation, some really old Chardonnay, very close to 100 years old vines. And it's not very common for Mâcon to have such really old vines. The same vinification, exactly the same in tank also. So same vinification. Just here the thing is different. But it was bottled at the same time. Yeah, it's the same vintage for it's 17 also for the Mâcon. So same vinification. We harvest maybe 3-4 days. I mean, there is about 3 or 4 days the difference maybe between Bourgogne Blonde and Serredière. Here it's mainly about the soil. For the Bourgogne Blonde, it was more on the flat area, a little more rich soil. Here we are on the nice slope, the slope of the village here of Chane. And we have some nice clay, but also we have very, very soon some nice stone. And here, this old vine, the nice exposition, they give completely different soil and quite different wine. You will find less fruit, but really more on the finesse at the end of the mouth. Really nice concentration, and it's more minerality, we call. It's really more long wine, but maybe a little less fruit in the nose for me.
So is it because as the vines get older, they start bearing less fruit, and in a way it becomes more concentrated? Is that why?
Yeah,
because I get basically it's part of getting old for the vines. Or
all the vine, yes, but also the terroir, the soil here. We have less clay, so the soil is less rich. I mean, and that's why that gives less fruit, but more concentration and more finesse, really long wine. That's why also. That's specifically what is a terroir in Burgundy. It's this difference is the same varietal, the same grape varietal, the same vinification exactly. Here, the big difference is only the soil, the terroir. That's what we call terroir in Burgundy.
Well, we do the soil, but it's the soil, it's the exposure, it's the grade, the incline. So it's a lot of things that you call terroir in a way. Could you maybe talk a little bit about the impact of exposure on the vines and how they grow?
For example, on east side, on the east, it's where the sun starts. So we have nice exposition because it's the sun is never really warm. I mean, never really hot. You have the nice sun from the morning, and when the sun is really hot, and more the afternoon, it's at the opposite. So the sun, they never burn the grapes, and you don't have you have the good benefit of the sun, but not the bad effect. That's why on the east side. On nice slope also, it's a nice irrigation, drainage. You never have too much water because the water, the vines they took. And then we leave some grass on the soil, and the rain, they go slowly at the end of the slope. So you never have too much water for the soil. And when we are in the slope, we have always less soil, less clay, so poorer soil. so that means you have less crop, less berries, less juice, but more concentration, and that's the good thing, what we want. So it's you produce less, but better quality also.
I'm getting a little more vanilla in this one than is that
Yeah,
fair?
that's possible, but there is no oak here. But
Yeah, I know.
only because you have 17 same vintage. So now is we are in 20 now, 3 years old wine. The wine is not old, but it's just ready to drink. For me, it's the perfect moment to start to drink. I don't like to drink the wine too young, but for me, it's the perfect moment to start to drink this kind of wine. So really what you have here, it's the wine produced very close, very close together, but the only difference is the terroir, the soil, and the exposition, all the effect we call terroir in Burgundy. So that's produced by the same producer, because you know every winemaker producer they have some decision or the effect. You know, some people they add yeast, they add some things so that give a different tasting to the wine. I did exactly the same thing for the two wines, so that's interesting to see the difference.
We're noticing on the color a slightly darker color, just barely. Does that also have to do with what? With the concentration, or with the sort of poorness of the soil, or is it something else?
Yeah, always all these little different. It's not about the making. It's really more about the soil, the concentration, of course, the age of vines also.
Okay. Any more questions? Now let's talk, since we brought up the issue of food before. Let's just keep talking about food a little bit.
So this cuvée, for example, Mâcon Chantre, we work, a lot with some restaurant, like nice restaurant, because it's like the first one you can start like to aperitif, or when you go to the restaurant, you can start with this wine to share a nice glass of wine. But for me, it's start to be a little bitter for the food, because you have less fruit and more finesse, more minerality at the end of the mouth. So it's, for me, start to be better with some food, because it's more fresh, it's more less fruit, but more finesse, more elegance. So that's why this wine, you will find this cuvée more, for example, in a restaurant for us in France, and I'm sure in United States also. The sommelier, they really like this cuvée, for example. Yeah. For me, the Bourgogne Blonde is more for everybody. This is more specific. It's more, it's a cuvée a little more. You need to know a little more the wine to enjoy. Maybe more this cuvée.
Yeah, and you can stand up to the food a little more, because it's more going on. Okay.
And last, you have the Puy Fussé, but the vintage 18, no?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's, are we ready for that? Everybody ready for that? It's sorry, another question on this. How do you compare the production, the volume for the first two wine, of how much you make? Is it a very small production, the single parcel one?
Yes, it's smaller, yeah, of course. The first cuvée, the Bourgogne Blonde, is one of biggest production, and the second cuvée, we produce maybe in good year we produce about 6,000 bottles, and if you compare the first cuvée, we produce more like 30,000 bottles. Yeah, so it's really small.
That's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's smaller. Yeah, smaller. It's only one plot and really old vines, so that give you quite small production.
Yeah, because again, the yield goes down with the age of the vines.
Exactly. And because it's on the slope, and on the slope, the roots they have less clay and more on the rock. It's immediately in the rock, so they have nothing really to grow a lot, and it's really poor soil.
I had a question. I forgot what it was. anyway. What's the average age of the vines, you would say, when you put it all together?
In which cuvée or which wine?
The Mâcon Chintré.
Mâcon Chintré. So the average, we have 30, 100 ans. The average is maybe 50. I mean, 55. Yeah, more 55 years old vine, because the vines my father planted, they are now 25 years old vine. But the vines they were planted by my great grandfather, it's more like 100 years old vine. So yeah, the average is more maybe 55 or 60 years old vine for the Mâcon les Serrodières. And if you compare for the Bourgogne Blonde, is more like 35, 40 years old vine.
That's still not young overall. That's still pretty, even for the Bourgogne Blonde.
Yeah. And but for Pouilly-Fuissé, for example, is really different because it's only my grandfather or great grandfather generation. So the average is more like 65 years old vine. Really the average. So it's really old vine. So that means it's Chardonnay, but it's not a clone Chardonnay. It's Chardonnay originally was planted. So that means every stock is they are different. There is no clone here. It's a lot of different kind of Chardonnay, and this is really unique because, for example, if you have Chardonnay in California, you will find it's Chardonnay but from clone, and quite a lot of people in California they use Chardonnay but from clone from France clone. Us, we are lucky because we have Chardonnay but the original Chardonnay. And that means we have a really nice diversity of Chardonnay, and this also gives this really nice tasting because it's such a different. It's like a lot of different people. All the people that are different but put together that give nice. And I think.
So you have more genetic diversity, I guess you're saying.
Yes. If you have only 1-2 clone, you have only 2 aromatic tasting at the end. It's really more. It's more standard. I mean, so that's why we are really key, and I continue that because I do my we call greffe, my baby vines. I use my old vines to replant or replace in my estate, and it's really unique because in the Mâconnais, the Chardonnay is originally from the Mâconnais. So all the Chardonnay you can find in the world, it's mainly come from at the original from us. So that's why we are lucky to still have some really old vines.
Okay. We're on to the Pouilly-Fuissé.
Okay, I just go grab. Pouilly-Fuissé 18, you said.
Longer finish. But that is also got more.
To Pouilly-Fuissé, that's the other appellation on the village. The big difference, if you compare Mâcon and Pouilly-Fuissé, for example, my village is a huge rock of limestone. Everything is on the hill. On the limestone is Pouilly-Fuissé appellation on the top. Everything is more on the flat area is Mâcon. So the really big difference is all the vines on Pouilly-Fuissé, it's on the rock, on the rocky, land, and on the limestone. And also what I said, really old vine. So the average here is more 75 years old vine. So it's quite different if you compare to the Mâcon and Pouilly-Fuissé. Only old vines, only on the limestone, on the stone, on the rock. So that gives quite different thing. Also, you have different vintage. So to compare, it's not really easy because there is a lot of things to different. Pouilly-Fuissé or Pouilly-Fuissé, it's only, it's from our village because what I said, you can produce Pouilly-Fuissé on different villages. So for example, if I own vines in Chintré or Solutré or Vergisson, different villages, I can blend and to make this cuvée Puy Fussé also. But here, it's only Puy Fussé from my village, from Chartres. And I use mainly, I mean, for this cuvée, I use mainly tank fermentation. I use about only 5–10% of oak. And at the end, I blend to make this wine. Then I produce different Puy Fussé, for example, Puy Fussé Cloressier, Puy Fussé Les Plessis, or Les Chevrières. It's single vineyard name each time. And here I use, for this kind of wine, I use only barrel fermentation. For this wine, the Puy Fussé regular, I call the village. It's a blend of the several tiny plots I have, because I have about 30 small plots all around the village. But sometimes I have only 8 rows, 10 rows, 12 rows, 20 rows here. It's yes, such a small, lot of small piece of plot. I do the same fermentation in tank for 90%, and about 5–10% in barrel. And at the end, I blend to make this cuvée. So you can feel a little of oak, but it's really just a touch. It's not oaky. Sometimes, quite often, like you said, Meursault, all this appellation, they use a lot of oak, and you have really oaky wine. I don't like too much oak. I like just the touch here. So you cannot really feel I mean, I like just to help the wine, but I don't like the oak flavor.
Yeah, I don't think I taste oak. It just seems to me that it's still very fresh, but it has a little bit more sweetness on the finish.
Yes, because 18 vintage was we had a little more volume also of crop. The crop was okay. 17 we had really low volume.
Yeah, low yield.
Yes, and that's why the wine is a little more round. Yeah, you have less acidity compared to 17. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very nice finish, but you left with a little bit of sweetness, which you did not have with the other wines. On the nose, to me, it seems that I get more flowers than fruit, and I don't know if that's, or sort of somehow a little bit more exotic. Maybe, some combination that's kind of hard to put a name on. But the other ones to me were more fruit, and this is more flower.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's what I explained. The Mâconnais is more on the fruit, is more fruity wine. Here, it's old vine, and on the limestone that give less fruit to the wine, but it's more complex, more fine. That's why it's more floral than fruity, for example. Why? Because it's old vine and more on the limestone. The limestone, the rock, they always give at the wine less fruity flavor, but really more complex, and it's more on the finesse or more on the elegance. That's the big difference. The same grape varietal, Chardonnay also, but on 2 different kind of soil. Yeah.
The Puy Fussé from 2017 must have been quite something also. I'm not sure, how would you describe it? 17? Yeah.
Well, 17, Puy Fussé 17 was really good, but was more concentration. It was really huge wine. Pretty big wine in 17. Yeah. 18 is more, is a little more fresh, more. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great.
But for me, I prefer this kind of wine with some food, with nice fish, fresh fish with no sauce. Why? Because it's more on the finesse, on the freshness, and you have less fruit. And for me, this is same like a nice piece of meat, white meat. Like we are lucky because we have the poulet de Bresse, really close, really famous. But we like white meat, but also like some veal, nice veal meat. The white wine is really, really good. Also some cheese, like goat cheese. For example, Comté, I'm sure you can find some Comté. Some this kind of cheese. This wine is really nice. I like this wine, with some fish, some cheese also. We don't always think for white wine with cheese or white meat, but it's a really nice combination quite often. This kind of.
I think more and more with people are really going with the white wine and cheese, because cheese seems to really kill the red wine, in a funny kind of way. It's just too much fat.
And the tannins also.
Yeah, yeah. How about Thanksgiving? Do you think this would be good for Thanksgiving?
Well, yeah. With the, yeah, of course, yeah. With the how do you call dinde?
The turkey.
Turkey.
Yeah, with turkey, oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. All these wines seem to be pretty high in alcohol, though, Romain. You know, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is always, they're all over 14%. Is that typical, or is this just sort of a...
Typical, no, it's 14. Also, it was for help. I imported.
Yeah, with the tariffs.
Exactly.
So did you just put 14.2 or you added something?
We add nothing.
So what is the real number?
It's more like 13 something. 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because it does look pretty high. And I know you
Yeah.
wanted to go get over 14, so that's good. We're happy you did.
My importer asked me, otherwise you will pay the wine 25% more. So we decided, yeah, to do, yeah,
Yeah. There was a question about the production of a couple of questions on making the wines. You know, some people were wondering if you had any bad experiences with cork.
that happened, yeah, sometimes.
To have that, and the white wine, it could be also, since it's more fragile, maybe it could be more, you know, susceptible to this. I don't know.
Yeah, the cork is always a problem. That's why I use not in the wine you add, I think, but I quite often for Mâconnais wine or Bourgogne, I use screw caps.
Oh.
I really like screw caps because for me it's a French innovation, screw caps. But all the French, they don't really like because it's too new, I mean, I think. And you know, there is all the heritage with the wine. So for the people, it's still the cork. But for me, and specifically for the white wine, if we want to use low sulfite, the screw caps is really good because it's really étanche. There is
it's the screw cap is completely you know,
there is no oxygen, no less exchange. And for white wine, we don't need oxygen. We specifically, if you want to use really low sulfite, you need to be very careful with the oxygen. Otherwise, there is oxygen.
It's going to continue to oxidize. Yeah.
Oxidation, and for the white is not really good. So
yeah,
the variety is quite different because you have anthracene and tannins. They protect a little more the wine. But yeah, screw caps for me is really good thing, and that's why I use a lot for all the fruity wine, because you keep the nice fruit, the nice freshness to the wine with really low sulfite, like nothing. And I have a lot of production in screw caps. For this order, what you have, there is no screw caps because the importer asked for me to have a part with the no screw caps for some consumer. But yeah, I quite often sell and bottle all the Mâconnais with screw caps. For Puy Fissé, it's little difference because quite often the people, when they buy more expensive wine or higher level, they want cork. I know it's like tradition, heritage, but we put really nice and expensive cork to have nice long cork and really nice cork. But we never know, it's natural, and cork, we can have some problem. We are lucky we have not big problem with cork, but sometimes that can happen. Yeah, I know. And we taste the cork. We pay really quite expensive cork to have less problem, but we never know. We are not in the cork, so unfortunately, it's gonna happen.
And the other production questions. I mean, do everything? You guys use the same process for everything in terms of the pigeage, the pumping, or do you have anything specific for different wines?
Yes. So for Puy Fissé, for the 3 Puy Fissé single vineyard, where I give the name like Puy Fissé Cloressier or Puy Fissé Les Plessis, Puy Fissé Les Chevrières, I use a little different. I don't use the tank like here. I use
use the wooden.
Yes. So, for example, for Cloressier, I use only Burgundy barrel, the 228 liters. to do the fermentation and aging for 1 year. After 1 year, I'll rack the wine from the barrel to the tank for 1 more year. So I age the wine 2 years before the bottling, and I don't find and no filtration. This is not very common for white wine. A lot of people, they always do filtration. Me, because I age 2 years, 24 months, I don't do filtration. My other cuvée Les Plessis, I use about half this barrel and half the big one, 600 liters with really thick stem. And for the last cuvée Les Chevrières, I use only the biggest barrel, only the 600 liters. Why? Because Les Chevrières, for example, we are really on the top of the village, really poor soil, only 10, 50 centimeter of soil. So it's about only 10, it's here and here, only this kind of soil. And then we are straight
5-6 inches.
Yes, it's straight on the rock, on the limestone. So we have no soil. And if you put too much oak in this kind of wine, the wine is really oaky. I hate that. So I use bigger barrel that give less oak to the wine, and the wine gives, you keep the nice freshness, and is really elegant and fine wine. So this gives just a touch of oak and not too much. If you compare Florestier, it's more rich soil, more clay, and the clay, they always give some more shoulder to the wine, more body, so you can use a little more oak flavor for this kind of soil.
Do you use new oak or used old oak, old barrels?
No, I quite often I bought 1 or 2 new barrel in total per year, and 1 big 600 liters. So in total is maybe, I don't know, it's like maybe 5, 3, 4, yeah, about 3% new oak, but in total.
Yeah.
And my new oak, they never go in my single vineyard.
Yeah.
I always, my new barrel, I add in this cuvée Pouilly-Fuissé Village. Why? Because I have tank, a lot of wine from the tank.
Yeah.
And I add 1 or 2 new barrel in total. You cannot feel the new barrel in this, but then I have my barrel new, and I never bought second-hand barrel because I want my barrel new. And then my barrel I keep maybe 10 years or 15 years minimum. So I have 1 new or 2 new every year, and then I have my.
There's a lot of the Pouilly-Fuissé was very popular here on the chat from everybody, and then I think it's, you know, people talking about the weight and the mouthfeel and then I guess if you wanted to explain that, is that what you said earlier, that because it's really it's a higher elevation, it's more, you know, less soil, older vines. Is this what altogether gives it that weight overall? And is that sort of a straight line as an equation from the kind of point of view?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. This is all this. It's not only one thing, it's all these things to put together, they give, the wine. Also because there is a little of oak, but it's all this little thing. That's why it's a Pouilly-Fuissé and not a Mâcon. Why there is 2 different appellations? It's because when they decided, they don't just put a map and just I don't know, a trait between. It was a nice reflection, and because we make wine since a long time, and after many years, they look and they see it was different. Wine here at this area if you compare to Mâcon. Mâcon is Pouilly-Fuissé. We make wine since a long time in the Pouilly-Fuissé appellation. In the Mâcon area is more young. It's younger. We make Pouilly-Fuissé, wine here or grapes here since many years now. So it's there is nice reflection, and we have my other cuvée of Pouilly-Fuissé, for example, Chevrières, they are quite different because you have 2 years aging and a little more oak. So this is really more not serious wine, but really more table wine and food wine. It's another level. We start Bourgogne, Mâcon, Pouilly-Fuissé, and then the Pouilly-Fuissé, it's a really high level. it's big, really white wine from Burgundy. It's not Meursault or Chassagne name, but they are very close to, yeah. For me.
What
And also the thing important is how we plow the wine and how we farm. This gives some this nice tasting. I mean, the thing harvest by hand, being organic, being biodynamic, all these things, it's very important to the wine. That's why I explained at the beginning. My father, I mean, changed a little how he was working, and me also. In the past, my father aged not like 24 months the wine. When I arrived, I changed a little the winemaking, and I aged a little. I mean, older the wine. I changed nothing completely, but I put new step, new piece. And, yeah.
You obviously, you talk about the biodynamic planting and farming, and then you're very close to the vines, and you guys have been doing this for several generations. Have you seen the impact of the climate differences and the climate changes? Is that having an impact on you guys, and what kind of impact does it have?
Oh, yeah, sure. And I remember the big difference, for example, in France, or I remember in Oregon, I visit a lot also in Napa, Sonoma. Us, we are vigneron, we are wine growers. That means we farm by ourselves. Me, I go in the vineyard. It's not like quite often like you have Mexican in the vineyard. Us, we are, yesterday I was in the vineyard, and every year, during the year, I'm every day at the vineyard. So I plant by myself, and I'm every day outside. So I took care of my vineyard. We are quite small, but I took care of my vineyard, and that's very important, because we see when the vines grow, and I plow. So we are very close to the vines, and we see really, like, for example, when we plow, I plow with my tractor. I plow, and I see how the grass grow, if the grass grow fast or not. And of course, all the last 10 years, we harvest quite often earlier. In the past, before, we harvest like end of September, maybe sometime beginning of October, but it was more, harvest time was during September. Then the harvest was more like half of September. When I was young, it was more like beginning of September. And my first vintage for me here to be winemaker was in 12. I mean, since 03, it's quite crazy, because harvest now is more like end of August and sometime beginning of September. But all the last 10 years, we always quite often harvest end of August. For us, it's quite crazy, because we harvest really early now. And also, quite often winter in the past, we have some snow here in my area. Quite sometimes a lot of snow. The winter was really cold. And now, for example, today is the first day we have really some frost in my area, and we are close to end of November. Normally at this time it's really cold, where there is already some snow. We can not go to ski, but very close, because we are quite close to the Alps.
Yeah.
And that's quite crazy, because we just start to have some cold now in the area. So yeah, of course, the
So
weather.
what do you think is the impact on the wine of all this?
The impact is the vines. We have less rain, and the vines, they start to grow really fast. And the big problem is, for us, like last year, and for the vintage 19, we have some big damage by frost, because the vines start to grow.
Yes.
Where we had some frost, and they killed the vines. So it's more difficult to. In the past, we have some frost until maybe, I don't know, February, March. Then no more frost, and the vines grow, and then that's it. But now the vines, they start to grow at end of February, and in March is still we don't know. Sometimes it could be already warm, but 2 weeks after we have some frost again. So it's start to be more difficult, yeah, to control.
And if the growing season is hotter overall, are you gonna have more alcohol, higher alcohol overall? You're gonna have, I mean, so it's gonna be other things as well, I would imagine.
In the past, wine in Burgundy, it was quite often about more 12 alcohol, 12 and a half good year, good vintage. But for us now, it's more like 13. 12 and a half is pretty low alcohol. 13 is more the average. And I have some friends of neighborhood. If they harvest later, me, I don't really like to harvest too late, but I have some friends, they make some 14 alcohol, 14 and a half sometimes. Yeah, it's not a problem now to produce 14 alcohol. Me, I really don't like, so I'm very careful about the harvest time. But so yeah, now we harvest more about 30% alcohol, for example.
How many labels do you guys have, and how many bottle production total?
In total, we produce for good vintage, good year is about 80,000 bottles a year. This is
How
really
many labels is that? C'est combien d'étiquettes? Combien de?
Nine different.
Combien?
Nine.
Nine. Okay.
Because we have the normal cuvée and then some very small cuvée with single vineyard. Sometimes we produce only 1,500 bottle or 2,000 bottle. Yeah. Because
are they all available in France?
Yes, in France, yeah.
Yeah, but in the US, it's only 2 or 3, right? Or
on some that depend of the states. I mean, no, they have more in states. They have maybe 4 or 5, I think. Yeah, that depend. I mean, 4 or 5 they have.
Yeah.
For example, I'm sure you can find the single vineyard Pouilly-Fuissé. And they have Bourgogne, Mâconnais, Pouilly-Fuissé. They have 4 or 5, I'm sure, in states.
It's okay. Can you just? I mean, this is my interest. I don't have that. I don't know if people have more questions, but we did talk about. François mentioned the Hospice de Beaune, and of course, it's a incredible institution in Burgundy. Can you just talk a little bit about their influence there and the work you're doing with them?
Yes, we are pretty lucky because the Hospice de Beaune normally is it's only wine around Beaune, and the Pouilly-Fuissé, we are the only one to be, not in Côte de Beaune or Côte de Nuit, because it's a different department between us and Côte de Beaune. And for us, it was really nice, a good thing for all the Mâconnais, because Mâconnais in the past, maybe 15 years ago, Mâconnais was really like cheapest wine and not very famous, not as around Beaune, I mean. And the thing to be in Hospice de Beaune, they help really all the Mâconnais, because they put Pouilly-Fuissé not at the same level, but we speak more about now about Pouilly-Fuissé and the Mâconnais, and we are for the people from Beaune, we are maybe now higher level. Or in the past it was only the Mâconnais, but really just Mâconnais, and now we are like, they produce not so bad wine. We need to be careful about them because they produce also some good wine. So for us, it was, I think, good thing. And because Hospice de Beaune, they are really famous, and in the world really now. And the thing you are able to buy during the auction some wine. So this is In the past, you need to be like négociant from Beaune, because you need to age the wine in Burgundy for 1 year before to bottle. And now, because this is Christie's, the auction, you are able to buy only 1 barrel. And I don't know if somebody, for example, want to buy during the auction, you can buy 1 barrel of wine, find a négociant, they will age the wine for you for 1 year and bottle for you the wine. So it's really easier to be able to buy some wine. Some people they with some friend they decide to buy one barrel, and that's why also the price go up, because there is more and more people there from all over the world. Yeah, and Hospice de Beaune, they are really famous. So I think that's same for us. It's always nice to walk with some people. They have nice nice spirit. I mean, and yeah, that's always interesting. Yeah.
Do people have any more questions on the chat if they want to add? I don't know if I'm missing anything or I've answered people's questions. No, everybody's drunk. François, Rachel. François, tu es sur mute.
He can mute himself.
No. On t'entend pas.
Vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Okay.
Si,
No, I had a question. I was going to ask a question about the impact of climate change on harvest time, but you asked the question before I could ask the question myself. But it's true, when I was a child, in the village with my parents who were winemakers, I remember the harvest time was always end of September, early October in some years. So it's quite amazing to see that in, let's say, 50 years or 60 years, harvest time has been moved more or less 4 weeks earlier. And it's a dramatic change. And I agree with Romain, and I fully support his remark on alcohol content. Having harvest time, much earlier now is very important. Otherwise, you end up producing wines which are 14% or more in alcohol, and I think it's bad. It's when there is too much alcohol in a white wine or a red wine, it's not as pleasurable to drink it, and it kills, the character of the wine. So, personally, I like to have my wine between 12.5 and 13.5 in alcohol.
Those days are over.
Those days are over, but it's unfortunate. I think a good wine should not be too high in alcohol. Otherwise, it's you drink port wine or but the real, and I know in America, people tend to like, high alcoholic concentration in wine. In California, many wines are 14% or more. And I think it's an American taste more than it was a European taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you lose the finesse and the elegance if you have
Exactly.
too much wine. You have really rich wine, really round, really fat, but you lose all the finesse, and the thing is really interesting to the wine. That's the same for Pinot. Why Pinot was so famous? It's because it was pretty, I mean, in the past, because now start to be higher alcohol too, but because Pinot was really fine and really elegant and
Yeah.
low, the poor color, and
The only plus in higher alcoholic content, is that you get drunk faster. That's the only plus.
that's true.
Listen, Romain, just going back to the farming and the biodynamic and organic, I think it's important, maybe if you have a minute, to describe the difference between organic and biodynamic, because it's not the same thing. It's a whole other way of looking at the cycle, the life cycle of the plants, if you want. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah. So I mean, organic is organic. The good thing in organic is you stop to use like herbicide for the grass, for example, and all the chemical for the fungus. So this is really important because you stop to use all this kind of product. It's benefit for the plant, but you can still continue to use, for example, for the fungus, some sulfur, for example, for the powder mildew. And it's good way, but you can do little. I mean, it's possible to do more, and that's the biodynamic idea. It's to be organic, but like a better organic way. That means we use, for example, some tea. We make some tea, for example, to spray the vines. We boil some water and we add some herb like I don't remember in English.
C'est quoi le nom?
L'ortie, par exemple.
Nettle.
Yeah, nettle, l'ortie, la prêle, le saut, la prêle. Je ne sais pas en anglais. Ok, la prêle.
What's la prêle?
D'abord, tu sais pas ce que c'est en français.
I mean, we make some tea with some grass, and we spray to the vines to help the vines to have the natural defense and to use less, for example, sulfur in the vine. And this is really important because it's like to be organic, but to use the less product. I mean, not natural, of course.
This new ways of farming, bio or whatever, it must be more expensive. I mean, more time consuming, and it may lower the yield of the vines. So it has an impact on prices, I guess.
Yeah, sure, of course, yeah. But at the end, you find the tasting of the grapes, and you know it's exactly the same when you cook. If you cook with some, for example, I have a garden. I make my tomatoes. If I use my tomatoes, the taste, you just need to cut the tomatoes, put little olive oil or salt, and you eat the tomatoes. They are good. That's it. You don't need more.
No, I agree. It's
tomatoes, they grow, you know, you add nutriment and vitamin, and they grow inside. I mean, not outside, inside. They have no flavor, and it's the same for us to produce wine. I mean, grapes. They have already some nice. Oh, sorry.
So I have some good news. We have a translation.
Romain's drunk too.
We have a translation. We have a translation for la prêle. La prêle des champs. In English, it seems to be field horsetail.
You translate it in another language.
I mean, you know, my wife used to be an English teacher, so I believe her.
But she's French.
Huh?
But she's French.
Yeah, she's French.
I also have something called Google.
Romain, how widespread is biodynamic farming in Burgundy yet? Or is it still, are you like one of the few?
Sorry.
Is it happening more in more places, or is it just you guys and a few others?
No, it started to be a little more popular, but my father was not the first, but yeah, kind of pioneer. Yeah, and there is the thing also. For example, one thing important for biodynamic is to take care about the moon. For example, the moon, to prune the vines, to rack the wine, to bottle the wine. We look at the moon. It's something very. It was something very important in the past. We completely stopped to use it because we always need to be faster. But in the past, for example, to make a roof, to make a barrel, the people, when they cut the tree, for example, they always look the moon, and we completely stopped to use it. But it's something very important. For example, for a baby vines, a young vine, we prune in the time of the moon, when the moon, they have more effect to the roots, because a young vine, it's not established, not yet. So we want the vines, they make some roots to be established. And at the opposite, really old vine. They have already some nice root system. We prune at the opposite. We want to make some grapes because old vines, they don't make a lot of grapes anymore. And so we want to push the vine, to produce a lot of grapes. So it's, you know, it's like there is big energy. You know, it's like for in the sea, comment on appelle les marées? I don't know.
Tides.
Like the tides, yeah.
The tide is one of the easiest way to see all this, the effect of the moon, for example. And we quite forget that, but is when we walk and we farm every day, it's quite easy to see this effect.
Yeah. Well,
So-
we're coming up on an hour and a half, which I was told by my wife is the magic number for good, successful Zoom calls. So unless there's a last minute question, I think we're going to wrap it up. Yes, Rachel? Now everybody's going to have to come up with some stuff to eat with all the wine that they drank. So,
But just one thing, yeah, to finish. But yeah, of course, the movie A Year in Burgundy is a really nice movie because it's more documentary, and you can really, I mean, see what is 1 year for job, and that's very interesting movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you can watch it, really feel free. It's really nice.
some people were really interested by the guy diving in his vat with his, you know, and doing all the pigeage, you know, with his feet. But I'm not sure many people do that. Is that true?
No, for example, me, I make only white wine, and for white we don't do pigeage by feet because we harvest the grapes and I straight put the grapes in the press. I press and then I have my juice already. We do pigeage only for red wine because the red grapes, they have the color in the skin, and we want the skin, they go in the juice. So we need to piger, we can pigeage.
Yeah.
In red we do. But no, in France, in Burgundy, still a lot of people, I mean, mainly good producers, they continue to do it by foot, by feet.
Yeah.
Still, yeah, it's not only for the movie. It's still really, because it's really soft by feet, and you really feel, and it's pretty
Feel the resistance, yeah.
and you don't go very far, so it's good. It's just the top, and that's it.
Okay, thanks, Romain. Thank you very much. I liked all these wines, to be honest, but of course, everything has its place and everything has its price. And as you said, depending on what you're drinking it with and when. So it's very hard to have an absolute hierarchy. It's all within context, but this was really enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me, and yeah, I hope maybe I will see you one day.
Merci.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Merci, Romain.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Merci, Rachel. Merci, François.
Merci.
Bye.
Merci à tout le monde en tout cas.
OK. Ciao. Bye.